everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. Today we're doing something a little bit different. This is the mid-year book freakout tag. I watch a lot of booktube and a lot of my favourite content creators have done this tag, and I've been getting really into reading and I really wanted to talk about the books I've read, so I thought I would do this video. I'm not currently a booktube channel. I am actually considering whether I want to have a booktube channel or turn this channel into something else. That's a whole separate thing and a conversation for another time, but I thought I would just start to put out some book content to sort of test the waters, see what you think, but also to test about kind of how I feel doing some of it. So that's why I'm bringing this tag to you. I really hope you enjoy it. If you do like book content, I have 2 reading vlogs on my channel already, so do feel free to check those out. If you haven't heard of the mid-year book freakout tag, it's a tag that a lot of booktubers do around this time of year to talk about the books that they've read so far in the year. And I haven't spoken about any books other than the 2 that I have reading vlogs for on my channel, so I thought this would be a really good video to start with to talk about some of my favourite reads. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of my favourites, some of my most disappointing, etc. reads for the year. I am going to try and use a different book for every prompt because I feel like otherwise I could just use one book or series for most of these prompts. So I'm going to try and mix it up so you can get a pretty good flavour of what I've read so far this year. First prompt is, what's been your favourite book so far of the year? It's a no-brainer for me. It's Heartstopper, volume 1, but kind of the whole series, but for the purposes of this we'll go with volume 1. I'm really late to the Heartstopper game. I'm openly going to admit it, and for a while I felt a bit weird about that and it sort of put me off kind of filming this kind of video for a while, but I've actually introduced quite a lot of people to Heartstopper by posting about Heartstopper on my Instagram, both the novels and the TV show, and so I thought that actually it was still worth me talking about this and not being afraid to say that. I am very new to reading. I only just got back into reading February this year. I've read 25 books so far this year, which I know for some people is not a lot. For me, that is huge. Last year I read 1 book the whole year. I used to read a lot as a child, but I've kind of fallen in and out of love with reading over the course of my adult life, and I'm really glad to have been picking it up again this year. I come from a family of readers. Reading's a really big deal in my family, so really pleased to get back into it. But so I need to not be ashamed that it's taken me until 2022 to read Heartstopper. I understand it's been out for a while, but me being honest about this will hopefully help some other people to discover Heartstopper, and so therefore I did my job, so not going to be ashamed about it. But yeah, this is Heartstopper. You maybe don't need an introduction to it because of the Netflix show, but if you do, this is a graphic novel series. We currently have 4. I think the 5th one is coming out next year, and it follows Nick and Charlie. Charlie is an openly gay student at school and he gets put in a tutor group with Nick. Nick is straight and really into football. He's quite a popular person at school. Charlie has struggled a bit more, particularly with bullying around being openly gay. And it's basically the story of Nick and Charlie meeting and falling in love. And that's effectively what we get for 4 novels. I cannot express to you how much I love this series. I mean, from an aesthetic point of view is the first thing. All of the spines are so stunning. They look so good on your shelves if you're thinking of having them. But these characters are just so believable. Oseman, who's the writer of these novels, as well as the illustrator, is so good at capturing what it is like to be year 10 and year 11 at a UK high school. So much of what the students go through is just so believable to the real life experience that teenagers go through. It's also just really wholesome. I heard a lot of people say that when I was watching them review it on booktube before I read it, and I kept thinking, what does that even mean? How can a book be wholesome? Don't you need to have loads of drama in a book? Isn't that the point? No, it's not the point. This is it. If you are looking for a cozy, really uplifting read, I cannot recommend Heartstopper to you enough. There are some heavy themes, particularly as you go through the series, and I am somebody who struggles a lot with my mental health, and following Charlie's journey through this series can be quite difficult and upsetting at times, but the way that the other characters rally around him, particularly Nick, is just so heartwarming. I have a boyfriend who is a lot like Nick. I am aware that I am incredibly blessed to be able to say that, and I love that these set of novels promote being a supportive boyfriend, not always being able to fix something, but just being there for somebody. I am effectively a Charlie and I'm just really grateful for the way that mental health support is portrayed in these books, because that's sort of what I've been trying to explain to people my whole life, is that I'm not really looking for people to fix me, I'm looking for people to support me, and this book really promotes that. That's probably mostly all I'm going to say about it because I've been rambling about it for a while, but I do just want to show you a little bit about the novel. So my copy is signed by Alice Oseman. I met her at YALC, which is the Young Adult Literature Convention, and I am planning to do a YALC haul. It was my first time at YALC. It was a really good experience and really lovely to spend some time with my friends. Alice Oseman was there and I, in typical like Charlie personality type fashion, said like literally nothing to her when I was getting my book signed other than hi. So I wish I could have said more, but I don't think anything I could have said actually sums up how I feel about this set of novels. So there's that. This also gives you a bit of an idea of what the art is like. I'll try and find a page that's sort of less spoilery. Okay, well, we've just got Nick and Charlie saying hi, which is absolutely a thing. The art is so gorgeous in this. I also just love the real mix of characters we get. This set of novels is so LGBTQ plus friendly, which is probably obvious because it's about two guys falling in love, but it's the process of Nick discovering his sexuality, Charlie being so open about his. We also have a trans character in Elle, and we kind of follow her journey in having to move schools and stuff due to bullying. So it's really good rep for that. We get a really good mix of backgrounds and all different types of people. So yes, after a lot of rambling, this is my favourite book of the year. I will be quicker talking about the other ones. For best sequel of the year so far, I've decided to go with Heartstopper Volume 3. So I'm not going to talk about this loads because it's still Heartstopper. I kind of feel like it's any of them, but I think that 3 is my favourite. This is when they go to Paris. This is what we're going to be following in the Netflix show for series 2. So I've decided to go with this one, but to be honest, it is all of them. If you're not really sure kind of whether you would enjoy reading these, as I say, they are graphic novels, so they're really quick reads. The art is really beautiful, so they took me a little while to devour because I anyway really lingered on each page looking at the art and really taking in every detail. So they took me longer than they'd maybe take some other people, but that was because I was really appreciating the art. But they are really quick reads, so you could get through them pretty quickly. Also, I would really recommend the Netflix show. It's a pretty good interpretation of the books. There's a couple of changes, but Alice Oseman was clearly really involved, so I would recommend that you check out the Netflix series as well. Particularly if you kind of think you're maybe not a reader, go and check out the Netflix series and see what you think, and I guarantee these books will convert you. The next prompt is a new release that you want to read that haven't, and I've decided to go with The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This is the Fairy Loot edition. It's so pretty. It's really lovely. This was my first Fairy Loot box. And I'm so happy with it. I'll do a little bit of a talk because I did actually film a May unboxing of my Fairy Loot box, but I decided not to post it. But it's so gorgeous. Like, the shade of purple is gorgeous. I love the gold foiling on this, and the end paper art is so gorgeous. So really excited about this one. So this is an Arabian Nights story, and I won't read you the whole blurb, but it says, inspired by stories from 1001 Nights, the Stardust Thief weaves the gripping tale of a legendary smuggler, a cowardly prince, and a dangerous quest across the desert to find a magical lamp. And that's probably kind of all I need to know I will enjoy this. It's obviously not like an Aladdin retelling, but it's of the same kind of ilk. It's a similar sort of story, but with a female heroine, and I'm really excited to read this one. I've seen a few people review it who have really liked it, so I'm really hoping to get to this one soon. It's actually good I've now taken it out of my Fairy Loot box. I'm probably going to put it with my other books so that I actually read it rather than just leave it in the box. So the next prompt is probably my most controversial one, which is your biggest disappointment so far of the year, and it's Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. So let me explain. So this is a novella which is based on Nick and Charlie from Heartstopper, but it follows them 2 years after the graphic novels finish, though we are getting another graphic novel next year, so I don't really know what Heartstopper 5 is going to focus on, but this one is set 2 years after kind of where we're currently at, and Nick is about to go to university, and it's the story of Charlie coming to terms with that, basically, and I don't really get this novella. So it is a novella rather than a graphic novel, and I think that's the first thing for me. I would just much rather read about Nick and Charlie in a graphic novel. I really missed their cute moments. I missed their highs. They are at their best when they are just silently communicating with each other. I just really missed Alice's art. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the way that the characters are portrayed in this, particularly Nick, I just don't think Nick would react like this. Now, I understand that Alice knows her characters better than I do. Of course she does. but the way that Nick behaved and him and Charlie get into a row over something in this novella, I don't think that's a spoiler. Like, you can read that in any review about this. And I just don't think Nick would behave like that. I just don't. So yeah, there's not a huge amount of story that happens in this. To be honest, it's a lot of Charlie whining, and I don't really enjoy that. It's basically about them coming to terms with Nick going to university and how Charlie's going to cope with that. And I am actually interested in the sort of processing of that type of story, but I just didn't really appreciate the way it was handled, particularly when Charlie is so smart that university would mean a lot to him. And so the idea that he wouldn't want Nick to go off and do his own thing, I just think is not very Charlie. But my main issue is how Nick is portrayed in this novella. I am going to pretend this doesn't exist, to be honest. I'm gonna get rid of it because I would never reread this. I don't like this version of the Nick and Charlie story. I would rather just read the graphic novels and rewrite my own version in my head of what happens when Nick goes to university. So yeah, this is my biggest disappointment. So the next prompt is biggest surprise, and I found this really interesting because I've watched so many booktubers do this tag and they all went with biggest surprise positive, but I think biggest surprise could go either way. So I have decided to pick a biggest surprise good and a biggest surprise bad, just for something a bit more interesting. So my biggest surprise good is My Mechanical Romance by Alexene Farol Fallmouth. So Alexene is also Olive Blake, who you probably have heard of because she wrote the Atlas 6, which is a very, very popular book talk book. But My Mechanical Romance is a new release this year. It's a YA romance, and we follow Belle and Teo. So Belle has lived in this area of LA that this book is set in, but she moves to a new school when her parents get divorced, and it's like a fee-paying, really good private school. And she has already moved to the school. It's not really about her settling in, but it kind of is. But she's already been there for about 6 weeks by the time we meet her in the story. She already has some friends, but it's sort of following the journey of her trying to settle into the school academically. And she gets picked up by one of the teachers called Mrs. Voss, I think her name is Voss, and she basically sees potential in Belle following a really rushed homework assignment, and tells Belle that she needs to enroll in AP Physics and that she needs to try out for the robotics team. Then the other character is Teo, and Teo is the most popular guy at school, but not in what you would typically expect from a kind of American high school. He is a jock, but that's not like his whole personality or everything he does. He's also by far the smartest person at school. He's also the best leader. He is kind of everything everyone wants to be at this school is Teo. And in this story, we follow Belle joining the robotics team, meeting Teo, and kind of how that dynamic progresses. The reason that I think this book is such a surprise is, well, I just didn't realize it would be this good. This book was genuinely such a surprise to me. I knew as soon as I saw the cover I wanted to read it. This art is by Jacqueline Lee, and I really love Jacqueline Lee's art. I have a few other books that are where the covers are drawn by her, and I didn't actually realize that until yesterday, and I am really drawn to any book drawn by her. So if any publisher happens to watch this, you should work with Jacqueline Lee, because I do think that I am drawn to books particularly by covers. Like, I just am. I'm openly happy to admit that I am, you know, someone who is just drawn to the cover, and Jacqueline Lee's art is so beautiful. So that's the first thing. But so I always knew that I was going to read this. I didn't know it was by the author of Atlas 6. I haven't read Atlas 6. I own it. It's a really beautiful Waterstones edition, but I haven't read it. And so it's not like I was kind of attracted to it for that reason. But this book it needs to exist. Basically, the best thing to love about this book is the fact that it promotes women in STEM. It's about Belle trying to figure out her place in the world, how much society has put down that women can't achieve things, and this one teacher who happens to see potential in her. And it's about how she handles kind of fighting with the fact that the majority of the robotics team are guys, and she's got to sort of deal with that, and some of the guys don't like having girls on the team. But it's also about her teacher, who always prioritizes the boys over the girls, her physics teacher. So it's a lot of kind of navigating how she doesn't believe she is good enough. And I talked about this in my Goodreads review, but I'll do a kind of quick summary here for kind of why this is so important to me. But I'm an arts person, my degree is in musical theatre, but I decided towards the end of my degree that I didn't want to do that anymore. And the way that the UK education system means that you are so shoehorned at about 14 when you pick the subjects you're going to study for the last 2 years of high school. And if you drop subjects then, you can't really pick them up. And it's hard to say. Now I feel like this book has changed the way I think, but I was gonna say I'm not really good at maths and science. I got pretty good grades in maths and science at school, so I don't know if it's that I wasn't good or if it was that I believe that women couldn't be as good at STEM, or I was put down for whatever reason. But I fought really, really hard to get a good grade in maths GCSE. I dropped from triple science to double science. But I made decisions when I went to sixth form in particular that dropped any sort of STEM subjects for me, and so that was it. I was on a path in the arts, and I'm now in a relationship with somebody who is in STEM, and I find it really difficult to, particularly as I decided to sort of give up on the career that I had wanted to study when I was at university. And it's not like I don't still love theatre, I do, but it's not what I want to do for my career, and I don't do for my career. But I can't go back and teach myself to code or teach myself good enough maths. I spend every day at work being like, sorry everyone, I can't count. I can count, it's just I tell everyone I'm not good at maths so that if I'm having a slightly bad day with maths, people can't tell. And you don't realise how conditioned you are in this until you read this book. So that's what I really love about this. I also really love Teo. A lot of people don't from the reviews, but I really like Teo because Teo has a lot of pressure put on him, and despite being an arts person, not a STEM person, that was also me. I'm much more like Teo than I am like Belle. I had a lot of pressure put on me at school. I still do now. I'm the person that everyone relies on to get stuff done. That's in my professional and my personal life. And when you falter, people notice. And I just really felt that the portrayal of Teo and how he deals with that and overcomes some of that in the book was really good for people that are overachievers or have a lot of pressure on them, as well as it being good for people like Belle, who is in some ways like me, kind of needs somebody to root for them to believe that they can do good in STEM. I also think the writing in this is super witty. It's really funny. It took me a little while to get into it. Just the first few pages I had to reread a few times, but I really got into it. It's also not that long. It's a pretty quick read. The love is also really cute. Like the romance between these two is adorable. Like you really, really want them to be together. I think it's really well written. It's really true to what I think high school love feels like. So I would definitely recommend it from that point of view as well. But yeah, not everyone is going to love this book. I know that, but this book was so important to me, and so I am just eternally grateful that it exists. But I also think that if any teenage girls, but I don't entirely like girls in there. We kind of talk about girls because of women in STEM, but anyone, whether, you know, if you don't kind of associate with the gender non-binary, but anyone who kind of feels that they can't do something and has imposter syndrome, this book is really important to help you realize that you can do it. And sometimes it's going to take some really, really damn hard work to get there, but you can do it if you put your mind to it. And if some people read this and follow a career in STEM because of this book, then I think that the author's done her job. So I really recommend this book. I really hope that people will get a lot out of it. So that's my biggest surprise positive. My biggest surprise negative is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I don't get the hype of this book, I'm gonna be honest. So this is an absolute BookTok sensation. I think it's a film on Netflix as well. And is it out now? I'll try and watch it if it is. So this follows Lucy and Joshua, and they are basically in two publishing companies that get merged together, but they are rivals for a promotion. And that's the story. It's like following them be rivals. And I realized after reading this book, I don't like enemies to lovers, okay? I still have several books that are enemies to lovers. It's a really popular trope, but I don't like it. I don't actually think it's that common in the real world that that's how people get together, which I could be wrong in saying that, and I apologize if I am, but I just don't think, based on my experience in life, a lot of people get together off the back of being enemies to lovers. So I don't really see that this many books need to be enemies to lovers because I don't really think it's that true to life. I'm also somebody who has had nowhere near as much as other people I know, but to some extent has been in elements of relationships that have toxic parts to them. And now being with somebody who is the polar opposite of that, and how much happier I am, how much of a stronger and better person I am as a result of being with somebody who doesn't have toxic traits, which is very common in enemies to lovers, I don't like the idea of people reading books like this and thinking this is what should be attractive. And I know that's a really personal opinion to me, and please feel free to disagree with me. I clearly know lots of people disagree with me, but that's my opinion on this. My Mechanical Romance has some element of enemies to lovers, but to be honest, I don't think it's enemies to lovers. And some people didn't like that in the reviews that I read on Goodreads, but it's more of a kind of academic rivalry that isn't really a rivalry for very long, and I'm so okay with that. Whereas this is, yeah, haters to lovers. The story of this is just kind of odd because Lucy and Josh are just kind of fighting the whole time, and then there's obviously a turning point halfway through the book where they kind of start to realise they like each other. Josh realises earlier than Lucy, and that's the story. Lucy goes out with this other guy whose name I don't remember, sorry to the other guy, because you are the person I feel sorry for, but she goes on a date with Danny, goes on a date with this guy called Danny, and he is portrayed as a real bad guy just for being a kind of normal, ordinary guy, whereas Josh is like big and muscly, and that's one of my issues with romance books in general. I mean, I love romance books. It's my top read genre, like overall in my lifetime. Probably not this year, but overall in my lifetime, it is the most read genre. But it's so often that it's like the female character is small and tiny, and he can lift me around, he can throw me around, and the guy is always really big and muscly. And the way that it's portrayed in this book just makes it seem like Lucy is always scared of Josh. She like really has some like big issues with him for a lot of the book, and it's like, if you have issues with him, why do you get in a relationship with him? I just don't get it. I don't get it. Whereas Danny is just a kind of normal, ordinary guy, but then is portrayed to basically be like the bad person, when really, if you read it from a less involved in Lucy and Josh perspective, you would realise he's not really a bad guy. I do like the bits when like Josh takes care of Lucy and stuff. They're kind of cute, but also a bit weirdly possessive. So yeah, I don't like this book. I gave it 2 stars because the writing is actually really witty. It's the story I don't like rather than the writing, because I do actually think the writing is really good. Yeah. Biggest surprise negatively, The Hating Game. Next prompt is new favourite author. I'm not going to dwell too much on this because I'm very new to reading this year. Every author to me is a new author. So it's probably Alice Oseman, but realistically also Fonda Lee as well as Ali Hazelwood. I think I would say those are my top 3, but I'll be talking more about some of the other books from those authors later in this video. The next one is newest fictional crush, and it really made me laugh in a lot of the other booktubers doing these videos where they said that they like always skip over this question. They don't really get crushes on book characters. My biggest crush is Nick from Heartstopper, so this is a really easy question for me. As I've said, he really reminds me of my boyfriend, so really I'm saying the crush is on my boyfriend, but Nick is, in my opinion, the perfect boyfriend, and I really value the way that Alice portrays him and really promotes having a boyfriend that looks after you as much as Nick looks after Charlie. So Nick. The next prompt is newest favourite character, and I've decided to go with Olive from The Love Hypothesis because I didn't want to just pick Nick and Charlie again. So this is another really big BookTok book. I really hate that this has a TikTok sticker on it. Not a fan of that, but this is because, you know, I've only discovered BookTube this year, and so all of these books are new to me. I don't have them from when they come out, but anyway, you will have probably heard of this, but if you haven't, this is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and this is basically fan fiction of Rey and Kylo Ren from the newest Star Wars films, which I'm fine with. Like, I like Star Wars. I don't really read fan fiction, but it's not that I wouldn't, I just haven't. But this was, I think, based on Rey and Kylo Ren fan fiction. You can see like the characters look like them. This is another cover I really love, by the way. And this is basically Olive is dating a guy who she doesn't really like, and her friend is also attracted to him. She really wants her friend to go out with him, so she kisses the first person she sees in the corridor to prove to her friend that she is over this guy she was dating. This happens to be someone who works at the university that she is a research student at, and that is Adam. And we then kind of follow the story of Adam and Olive pretending to be together. So it's fake dating trope, pretending to be together and discovering in the process that they have feelings for each other. I really love this book. I have read a lot of romances. So as I say, I've kind of gone in and out of reading, and the genre that I've read in and out for the last 10 years is romance exclusively. So I am a big romance reader. I have opinions on romance books, and I really enjoyed this one. Ali Hazelwood is a super interesting writer. She's really funny, and I really loved the portrayal of Olive. And so that's why I've kind of put her as my favorite character, because she's different to other heroines I've read. She's really nervous. The romantic scenes that she has with Adam, she isn't experienced and she kind of messes up some of it. And I like that realism. It's much better for people to read books like this and realize that not every romantic time you have in your life is going to be necessarily super mind-blowing and perfect. And I think that more people could understand that you know, sometimes life isn't like that. So I think this book is really good at that, and I really like that Olive just feels really real. She doesn't have a lot of dating experience despite being a bit older, and I just really like that. The only issue that I have with this book, I rated this 4.5 stars. The only issue I have with this book is that Olive is small and Adam is big, and that is mentioned a lot. So that's the only downside. I really want to read the other Ali Hazel books, the novellas that have come out this year. I would really have preferred to have them in physical copy. I downloaded a sample of the audiobook and I don't like them. So I need to buy them on ebook, which is fine, but I would ultimately have preferred them in print. I don't know if we're getting them in print, but I do really want to read those. Editing Cat just popping in here because one of the prompts that I don't know how I missed it out was what book that's coming out in the second half of the year are you most excited for? And for some reason I just didn't include that. It's Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I have got the Waterstones exclusive edition with the sprayed edges. I love the look of the cover. I'm excited that we're getting another romance story in STEM. So really excited. That is my answer for this prompt. Sorry that for whatever reason I didn't include it. So I've decided to go for Olive for new favourite character. For book that made you cry, to be honest, I cry at everything. Like I'm a teary person. I cry at TV shows, I cry at movies, so I can't really remember if I've specifically cried at any of these, but I probably have cried at all of them. But I've decided to go for Heartstopper Volume 4. I won't go into details about it, but basically this is the one where Charlie's mental health stuff starts to get really difficult, so there are major trigger warnings for that if you're going to keep going with this series. It's just emotional. The way that Nick handles it is really beautiful, but also watching Charlie struggle, and this is the book that made me cry the most. For book that made you happy, because I'm not picking Heartstopper or The Love Hypothesis, I've decided to pick Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this book follows, well, I have a whole reading vlog on this, so you can watch it if you want to, but this book is about Alex, who is the son of the first female president of the United States, and a picture is taken of him and Henry, who is Prince of England, well, Prince of Wales. I think that's like one of the only things about this book where it's sometimes a bit unclear, but Prince of Wales, Henry, and they basically are seen kind of getting into a public flight, and so it's demanded by their respective kind of PR that they need to play nice for the cameras, and in the process of doing it, that they fall in love. And this book's really fun. I really like it. Both Alex and Henry are super endearing, particularly Henry. I debated putting him as new favourite character, but I could also put him in fictional crush. He's just beautiful and has a really lovely personality. But Alex is also super fun and really charming. The book is really funny, well written. There are email exchanges in between chapters which help with the passing of time, but also really help you to get to know the characters. And you're just really rooting for them. So I really enjoyed this. As I say, you can check out my reading vlog if you want to know more about it. This is also being made into a Netflix movie, I think, and I'm really excited for that. The casting looks perfect, so yeah, super excited. So the next one is your favorite adaptation of a book to like a TV show or a movie, and the answer is Heartstopper. I don't think I've watched anything else though that is a good adaptation. Like Wheel of Time was last year, right, rather than this year, but otherwise I think Wheel of Time, I really enjoyed the show, but I haven't read the book, so it's difficult for me to say. I really enjoyed Witcher, but again, I haven't read the books, so Heartstopper. Another one in this, which I don't think has been in a lot of the booktuber versions of this, which is favorite review you've written, but I am going to say, I think some people maybe talked about their favorite videos and stuff though, but I would just like to say that like I will put my Goodreads in the description down below. My favorite review is the review I did for My Mechanical Romance, so I would recommend you read that like if you want to, but you can check out my Goodreads. I do a review for every book I read. I really enjoy writing reviews, so I would recommend you check that out. So next up is most beautiful book that you've bought this year. And I know that a lot of people left out Fairy, Loot and Illumicrate because, well, I guess a lot of booktubers get sent them for free, or maybe they just wanted to include something else, but I do pay for Fairy Loot and Illumicrate, and so I felt that it was absolutely fine to include them. The book that I've actually decided to go for was not one of the main books in the book boxes, but was an additional book that we got in the June box for Fairy Loot. So if you don't want that spoiled, like, please skip to the next part of this video, but otherwise I will show the book in 3, 2, 1. It is Twin Crowns by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Webber. That's a lot of Catherines. I'm a Catherine, so that's exciting. Don't know if I spelled like mine. But this book is so gorgeous. And what I can't get over is that this isn't even the main book. Like, this is the prettiest book I own and was just an addition in the June box, like instead of other items. But it is these gorgeous blue sprayed edges with a gold rose pattern, and then the front cover is this absolutely gorgeous gold foil, and that's the spine as well. Like, it's so stunning. It's so stunning. So I absolutely love this, and yeah, I think this is so beautiful. So this is Twin Crowns. I have no idea what it's about. It's a really popular book, so this video is quite long, so I'm not going to go into detail about it, and it's pretty popular, so probably most people know, but I'm excited to read it, but mostly I'm just excited to have this book in my life. The next prompt is a book or books that you really need to read before the end of the year, and the easy answer for me is Jade War and Jade Legacy. So I read Jade City as the first book that I read to get back into reading, and I loved it. It was a pretty big book for it to be the first book I've read, and since then I've read many shorter books and mostly graphic novels, but it's superior fantasy. Even though I've taken a real break from reading, I was a fantasy reader as a child, and my family are fantasy readers, so I know a lot about fantasy, and my boyfriend is a fantasy reader. Fantasy is everywhere in my life. But this is something so different. If you don't know, the Greenbone Saga is the story of two fighting crime syndicate families who are fighting for control of the area that they live in and control over jade, which is a substance that they use to get enhanced abilities. It's the kind of magic in this world, and that's kind of all I want to say without spoiling it, but it is really, really well written. It's so fleshed out. It's such an interesting story. I gave the first book 5 stars, and like, it would be my favorite book of the year if it wasn't for Heartstopper, so and maybe My Mechanical Romance, but it's up there. Okay, I really, really loved it. It's definitely my favorite fantasy, and for some reason I am struggling to get through the second and third books. Not because I'm not enjoying them, and I know that everyone collectively feels that Jade War and Jade Legacy are better than Jade City, particularly Jade Legacy, so I know I need to get through it. I think it's a really, really big commitment to read these. These are much bigger than other books I read. It's much easier for me to read like Fence graphic novel, which is way shorter, and I can really get through my like Goodreads book goal for the year than spending what's going to take me months to read books this big. So I do really need to get back into them. I know they have audiobooks, so I could consider those, though I've just sort of started listening to Aragon, so I kind of maybe need to switch to the audiobook for these, but I don't have that much time to listen to audiobooks either. So yeah, but by the end of the year, I would love to have finished Jade War and Jade Legacy. I am so excited. Everyone talks about how these are like some of their favorite books that they have ever read, and I can completely see why. So I really, really, really want to get through these. Those are my main goals. There's other books I would like to read, but it's Jade War and Jade Legacy that I know I want to finish. The last prompt is favourite community members, favourite booktubers, and I watch a lot of booktube, but some of my favourites, and I don't think these will be any surprises because they're all pretty popular booktubers, but at the moment I'm really enjoying How to Train Your Gavin, Meg with Books, JD Ray Reads, Steph Loves, I would say are probably the top 4. There's also the PM Reader, who I really like, as well as the Peruse Project. So they're probably the top ones, but there are others as well. I would love to hear your booktube recommendations for kind of who you recommend watching, so please put those in the comments down below. Otherwise, that's the end of this tag. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoy book content, because I would be really interested in doing some more. So let me know if it is something that you would like to see. And as I said, I will be linking to my Goodreads down below. Please feel free to add me as a friend on Goodreads. I love seeing what everyone else is reading. I get so many recommendations from what you're reading. I would really love to be friends on Goodreads, so please feel free to add me there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I would really appreciate a like if you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't already, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. You can also find me over on Instagram at peace.love.plan. I am a planning person primarily on social media, so I don't really post book content on there, but I also don't really post planning content right now. I'm mostly just posting my stories, in which I do talk a lot about books, as well as kind of other general life stuff, so maybe you'll find it interesting. But otherwise, I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!